Mare, now look. Like you see, Marge same day, language in Nigeria, Jizada language in Yumba same day, and Ma chicken, language in Yumba ship are down Javana, what Yumba is a walk hours and George in a court to look at you in that combo you in that Jamia and me in the server chick, Chola down to Sine, and Shandaro, same day Shandar two in it, and you can jade, go around me, Yumba. Dina Shango, somebody same day. Language na jibe shukchenbo me ge ji me shan le never shen na never be ma su shukchenbo che tu ge ana ji ge pan bi ge pan do che ne be pan do tu tu ge na sem de ni be ji shukchenbo shu ji le za de language yin ma na shin ji ga sem de pa nam ye ge wang ki nyo mong bi chuo le pa an zhuo chuo chuo ji yue de le so dang zhe.
Good evening. Last week, we continued to look at the presentation of the fifth chapter of Shantideva's Bodhisattva's way of life, wherein he likens the most powerful of animals to elephants, because elephants, if unsubdued, if wild or untamed, can cause great destruction and even death. Similarly, our mind has tremendous power. If our mind is not tamed, not subdued, through our life we can bring great destruction and even death to ourselves and to others. In the minds in particular that can cause such harm are these afflictions. These are what have to be tamed.
That about in the language in you must mustn't part drama Jessica or what dinner shin Taupi Jataru Dasha when the Dodo Yammer or dinner shin some notipa and Lobby Chola Madawache and Gaji Bigi Cholam, Geshe Chola Madawache, that simply give Chol two go for us, Kako for us. Jizada simply a language Sungu for this. That kind of Sunguresina. Jizan Jen Shishin Tien Che, Mother Shishin Down, Shishin said, Chevachen, somebody. 有某位错了呀，现在绿色企业上面的客户的客户们都还结外，这信心也大。那信心然后我要对，然后的有某位错看的介绍的，对才介绍的什么什么的有某位错说，如果有做啥的什么作为呢，主要给大山路还我要对，那么说什么的话，给会错了什么大局些，真别送些的，真把这个把给好了把真把接，啊的，那个，咱们一起摘的，真把接的。Jamdo Tempa Chair, that doesn't give a temp, give you a temper, give you some time to in the same year, and give you children, it's the Gasore, gave us about Dasha one, that done, Lucian and Tenshi, same the song for this, same the Lucian Sovaina, and then Jivatamje, young Maries, Jivatamji, young Maries, and more than Kawadi, give you Chumunda, Jinda, tomorrow Lam Yirimba, the Tabachimba, Lam Yirimba, Yamle Rimba, no seminar pass loud one, Labana, one, as she has seminar, and Yamli Rimba, very two skin, you says, kissing out the tea or tennis or them.
Just like a wild elephant needs to be tamed, so as at the very least not to cause harm, but preferably to even bring benefits, so too the mind needs to be tamed or subdued. Because if the mind remains distracted, drawn by the afflictions all over the ship, it will only lead to harm and suffering. So the technique that Shantideva has been presenting thus far is to subdue the mind through relying on conscientiousness, mindfulness, and vigilance. And these are the topics of the previous and current chapters. So what one utilizes is one ties one's mind to just like when one is taming an elephant, one binds an elephant to a post to prevent it from running around. One binds the mind to a post, and this post are various virtuous minds. And one keeps one's mind bound to this post of virtue through the wholesome minds of conscientiousness, mindfulness, and vigilance. So one can bind one's mind to any number of virtuous minds, such as love, compassion, refuge, ethics, and so forth. And one utilizes vigilance, which is like likened to a mind likened to the secret police or a spy, always in the back of our mind, observing the mind in general. And as soon as it notices the mind has lost its virtuous object, in other words, it's strayed back to under the influence of the afflictions, as soon as vigilance notices this, its good companion of mindfulness or recollection recalls the danger of the afflictions and the benefits of the particular virtuous mind that one was engaged with. And mindfulness then brings the mind back to the virtuous object, again, whether it's love or compassion and so forth. So in this way, one utilizes vigilance, mindfulness, and conscientiousness to ensure the mind stays bound to virtue. And this means one attains a state of not having any fear or terror even. And what that refers to is because one's mind is virtuous, it knows one is accumulating strong habituation to virtuous ways of thinking, breaking one's habituation to the afflictions such as anger, attachment, pride, and so forth. And therefore, one has confidence in the virtue one's creating and one's good rebirths. There is no need to fear. Moreover, one knows one is progressing towards the attainment of mental paths, even liberation and enlightenment. So again, there is no need to fear. Devasas masaba che masaba kewi chimeki kangatike yung mare chiza semdi kewi chuzuka ya samda yani ya do yana sa samda de kewa di ashu cheshe do ne ne kewa chimo ngonde tube kyuchada tarba de tamjigi bim ngo ba de lam nyam ni rimari kwone kondu peje de tingi dewa chi yung gores chiza de ne za semdi pa kewi chola da sha ba ina kanga ya ki jiba tamje ko da sha ba de jiba re ha kanga yung mare se. In this life, all the problems and difficulties that we've experienced, every suffering, fear we have experienced, and in fact, all the fears and problems and suffering that are yet to be experienced in life to come, all of these come about in dependence on the same sequence of events. The mind is afflicted, it's non-virtuous, and through this we accumulate non-virtuous karma. And when this non-virtuous karma ripens, it ripens in unwanted experiences, in suffering, in fear, in problems and difficulties. So this has been our experience in this life, and in every life up to this, as well as will be the case in lives to come. Unless we subdue our mind. We follow this skillful technique presented by Shantideva, whereby we subdue our mind through utilizing mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness. And in this way, our mind starts to become ever more habituated to virtuous ways of thinking, ever less habituated to non-virtuous ways of thinking. And as we start to experience this change within us, and perhaps we receive positive feedback from those who know us well, seeing and experiencing our change, we can have confidence. We can have confidence that our future lives will be good. We will once again attain an excellent rebirth as a human being, another precious human rebirth. And through this ongoing accumulation of virtue, we know we are creating the causes that will eventually lead to the attainment of stable, lasting happiness, that of liberation and enlightenment. The happiness that all beings yearn for, a happiness that is never punctuated by even a moment of suffering. So this is the very purpose of this chapter, and the preceding chapter is all about how to tame, to subdue our mind, turning it away from afflictions and binding it to virtuous ways of thinking. So what Shantideva has been presenting now is reasons for that, why we need to guard our mind and how to do so. And he's presented how to do this. Now he presents a quotation from the Buddha. And the purpose of presenting quotations is to make it very clear. This isn't something Shantideva has made up, but it comes from a valid source, the Buddha himself. So the 6th verse in the 5th chapter. In this way, all fear, apprehension, and suffering beyond measure also originates from the mind. The speaker of truth himself has taught. Just before I translate what Genda said, in the first line, the word I've translated as fear and apprehension as a single word. So this word, up to now, I've translated in the normal way of fear or terror, something like that. But talking to Genda earlier, I was saying the word has a far broader meaning. So I've included a word of apprehension. So again, it's another word in Buddhism to understand, has a very broad a scope. So when you come across the word fear or terror or something like that, understand it to take it in a very broad way. So even apprehension, all the way up to fear and terror, will be included here. So now to come to Genda's commentary. In this way, all fear, apprehension, and suffering beyond measure also originates from the mind. This then is tying back to a couple of verses before, the 4th verse, where the illustrations were given of what induces fear and terror and apprehension in beings. So illustrations of from the animal realm was given of tigers, lions, elephants, bears, and snakes. And then illustrations from the hell realms of the guardians of those beings in hell, and illustrations from the spirit realms of evildoers and rakshas. And then from the hell realm, so I mentioned the hell realms, guardians of hell, and then human beings, all other enemies. So this is what was mentioned in a couple of verses before, in the 4th verse. All of those, as well as every single form, so in addition to that, so in this way refers to all that, all fear, apprehension, and suffering beyond measure. So now Shantidevas take this quotation from the Buddha is going even further than those illustrations to call to mind all the suffering that one experiences in any realm. And this then incorporates beyond measure, incorporates the intensity of the suffering in the lower realms, as well as the lengthy duration of rebirths as a spirit or as a hell being, as well as the many number of rebirths one has in samsara, in any rebirth in samsara, whereby one suffers, one experiences fear and apprehension. So every experience of suffering that one ever has is now and ever will experience. Whatever that realm, whatever life form one happens to be in, the 3rd line originates from the mind. So this then ties entirely to what Shantideva has been pointing to, that the fault of not guarding the mind is that we create the causes to suffer. And then the final line, the speaker of truth, so this is an epithet for the Buddha himself, for Buddha Shakyamuni, taught this himself.
Nando Sina, that is Lungi to buy. That then that river some time and that's that river some time, and the Jabba Chevina do say as the repeater to content to yes word. Semjen Nevu Chunjanam, Sushi Kini Chetuche, Chelsea, Sashi Suiche, Meso data Chile Jones, Della Meso says to I, Medi member Moto seller, there's a Moto Dali Chile Jones more, manner more with the message, Titan and Madavare. Della Merato, I Moso would have then the Mera do down. Meso data Chile Jones at the Chamber Madam Moment, Cesade. Module also needed this year, other manner motive or rescue.
What else? So Shantideva there presented a quotation from the Buddha to back up his presentation or to show the valid source of his presentation. Now in the 7th verse, he presents a logical reason. So the 6th verse was a quotation, and the 7th verse is a logical reason establishing why all faults depend on the mind, and therefore the need to guard the mind. So the 7th verse, all the reasons for sentient beings in hell who intentionally all the weapons for sentient beings in hell who intentionally made them, who created the burning iron ground, from what did those hosts of women arise?
Nyevi Chunja Simjam Anyawalma, Nyevilia, and Simjelia, and Jigi, Tuyata, Shayata, Simjania, Kangachi, Nyevi Nyawasuda, the Nigga Chunjata, Miregatone, Chikanga, Maunungo water. Tisa Dineza, the Nigga Nyawalia, and the Kanga Nyoji, Kinyoyagi, Nyai Kin Maswana, the Nigga Chunja Jikta, Maria Digindige, and the Suzeveres, the Sohon Suis, Sujikini. Sujikini, Sujikini, Sujigores, Sujamares, and the Chedu Jazz, Sui Chedu Sugores, Sudandalia, and Sulakama Jet and Dala, Sujigores, Chisa, Navy, Simjan, Chunjan, Sujikini, Chedu Cha, Chisa, Simjania, Nyawarakin, Navy, Duma, Penem, Jigima, Shapa, and Chunji, Tuba Kamba, Tuba, Lawa, Tuba, Chanja, Chen, Nasovic Honekanga. Da the nigger doom la so bark patuni, Gang Shuch Mungo, the dinner sunshine, Susuan, Susuan, Sugan, 那现在这个水果的别是，那个现在是水果，那现在这个水切入出来是刚做呢，切入什么间的水切入水果的是，这些，怕在都是呢，这样的是我的，就我马上的说给都是呢，你就我先这样前面呢。
The first two lines are a rhetorical question. All the weapons for sentient beings in hell, who intentionally made them? So beings in hell are tormented in many ways, and one of which is being tormented through the use of weaponry. Bodies are chopped or hacked up, they're intentionally cut, or they are burnt or boiled. So there are many ways in which beings in hell are tormented. So these weapons that they are tormented with, who intentionally created them?
假说设计水解释，这上天那个被加个看吧，没办法，你那里呀，这个才有同用过呀，他设计这些没办法，老说吧，那个刚刚那个用那个那个加这个加没，马虎我查这个那个白的，那个那设计他们家那的这样不行的说吧，那个这个加了说吧，那这个说解决，下地就过山的刚刚这个，就说。水起来是，他的假说看不没办法的水过来是，的那个水起头起来的是，假说设计水起是。
Oh. And the rhetorical questioning continues with the third line: who created the burning iron ground? So this we should understand as being the place of hell itself, the burning iron ground, the mountains that crush, as well as the iron-beaked birds that eat beings alive, and the insects that burrow into the very marrow of beings. Who created all of these?
个时候是莫说的，他激励就是莫说写的，想把那东坡写就这些的，他想把那东坡是被那鱼肉那个被这当的那个村嘛的这修觉的感觉，就是这里呀。那个是莫错些，那个是莫当破老师别错些，我带错的错干什么我了吧？也说那就说给购物业务这个本来这个嘛，这给当给他就给当过了是，他去过了是，给他牙学些过了是，其实他那说给那说给那边购物他的那个就现在的图啊这的亚洲的。那日的嘛，看嘛都是的，亚洲的个也这个把都起来，是这更把拉qua下现在嘛是刚刚修那东啊把都没把用过了是，呀这里的那嘛没有听了呀，那嘛说是结果过了是，呀嘛那你可是没做过题没你都是嘛做的，呀这里这些看马路的是吧？但嘛做的看这里给的，这里参加的看呀主要是，那点嘛做的呀刚把拉qua。车上都下去，我车上下去干嘛？我的那个用过的是，车上没错。现在记录上，车上没当结巴的旁边错的那个刚刚用过一个的那个穿下一个人的水吧的是我的。
The rhetorical questioning continues in the fourth line. From what do those hosts of women arise? The hosts of women refers to the neighboring hell, where one of shalimi trees, Somali trees, where the hell being is at the foot of a hill, and here's their loved ones at the top of hill. So this host of women should be understood as more hosts of relatives, because of male, female, whoever one is close to in one's previous life. One hears them calling you from the top of this hill, yearning for their company and their support. The hell being rushes up the hill, but this hill is forested, and the trees and their branches point down, and their branches are made with leaves of sharp iron. And so the hell being rushing up to their loved ones at the top of the hill gets cut and torn by these trees, eventually arriving at the top of the hill, their body destroyed by these trees. They find their loved ones are not there, but now they hear them being called on the base of the hill. Now their loved ones, again, male and female, are calling them from the base of the hill. Again, the yearning for their loved ones arises, and they now run down the hill, but these trees, their branches invert, and now their body is once again being cut and torn as they descend the hill. So this is one of the neighboring hills, the hill with the Shalmali trees. So this is what is being referred to here. So the question, though, is the same as the previous lines. Who created these, or from what did this all arise?
Jisan dinigi, that dinigi nyawigi chunjadang, and the Jase Barrier Kambadang, in the Shambali Dongbosiadang, dinigi, Tikida, Shen Sujangi, Suhenchi, Yomares, Jamena Jesu, and Gudan, Gumeba, Gudan, Kim Mebalan, Yomares, that was Gudan Kinji, Yores, that Gudan Ki, Yobana, Shen, Sue, Shen Mebana, that's also in Suyomarwaman, that Kewangama Sosugi. Denigi le saba legi devu nyoim le saba di legi devu ibare chezadi jeso ne le tini chungwa les chezan le de garesene nyomo be sem nyomo be cho so je sem nyomo be kiedu ene le nga basa ko le chezan dine za ta rujiba sam ta be ne denigi kiji denigi yoya gi chaza je yudan kinje yo les shengi de söyo mares ta yudan ki yo bana that said koronya di kapsone me sawa söyo mare chezan kewang ngama da güçü sayıyor güdü versende semgi tende nyomo be le saba de le tene chuain ba da rikpeti ne samdan ne güdü bu se horda.
To summarize the meaning of the 7th verse, then, all that one experiences in the hell realms, on the weaponry that torments one, the buildings in which one is trapped and burnt alive, the mountains that crush one, the burning ground, iron ground, as well as the voices of loved ones, all these experiences, they did not arise causelessly. They all arose independent of causes and conditions. In other words, they came from there are the karmic results of causes accumulated. When one then looks at the accumulation of negative karma, these karmic causes were created by afflicted minds. So therefore, by using logical reasoning, we establish that these hellish experiences are not causeless, but they are the karmic consequences of causes created by our own afflictions in past lives.
Zanda de semle tine chungo ba de zanda sem tine yona gane yose sem nyomo ba ye de chao control nga ye wong ye de pene control shukshim ke de control wong ge shan lia so jue ba ta ji shen ye kang ba jie ba la ba jie ba shen chun gi pu ba la so ba da de ne gi ye de da so su ge liang ba sa de ge wa qin bang so la ye ge gu la so la ye ye wa de ge ne da chun jia la so ba rang le ya de ne gi gang an yo ye ge le de sa ba sai go was chizanda de sha la so ba ge ne de sha ge sem je so jue ba ta ben de sem je ben de ji ge ba ma xin ye de na gang ba la ba du ba la so ba da su bo sha wa la so ba de ne ge sem je an de ji ge ma an ji ge num cho cho ko ko na le ya ji ma xi ba je num na zhe ya la so ba yu num an sem je me se ba la so ba du xie de so so ge sai de ya bi ji ta ya de na de ne xie de an di ye ne nya ma so le nya wa le ge je dong ga de ne ge yong wa de ge le de sa go ba ji sa di sem gi sem nyom mo be xiang wa de so ji nyom mo bo nyom mo ba ge de di gi xia li ya nyom mo be jia wa jie jie jia yu ne xi jia wa jie ne xi jia wa jie de da ye wan qi ma le de ne ge dong wa nya le sa go de es ji su mo lo da sem de de yo da de.
The meaning here is it's through the mind. When we ask it here, when it's asked rhetorically, how did this all come about? Who created this? Our mind did, and in particular, the afflicted mind. So it's not that the mind created it like an apparition, but rather through afflictions, karmic causes were created, which ripen in these suffering experiences such as these and others. So then one may think to ourselves, well, how can such a cause for such a karmic result be created? Well, it's through afflictions such as anger that the thought to bring harm to others will arise. And that thought may not be just a mere arisal of a thought, but it may be strong, intense, and long held. And it may not only remain on the mental level, it may well be acted upon, and acted in terms of a verbal expression or even physical action. This is a clear way that the causes are created for such results. But it's not only anger, attachment too. It's through attachment that other beings are caught, that we may catch animals, and whilst they're still alive, struggling in fear, they may be skinned, they may be cooked, or they'll just be killed. But whatever it may be, tremendous negative karma is being created. And what is behind this activity? It is the afflicted mind. It says the mind in general, but in particular minds which are afflicted by anger, by attachment, by many other expressions of affliction.
안저기 세대를 상담이네 소소기다 소소로 콘트게도 아니 콘트게 마기와차나 데니기 강아요바디 제가 셈네되는 거래시 근데 자다 셈디 기회 초를 봐 당제 셈디에는 샤리아 잠바단 자와 셈디에는 지 팬비 삼다다시 한 진비 삼다다 제바님의 자다 데니게 셈 기회 제바이나 삼로 코바이나 삼로 개와 딜라티네 네 샤리아 팬바주 샤리 팬도 디 아니 레디아 레상모샤 마오바이네 소소리에 디게야에 규사야다 데니게 한서 셈라 상보디게 팬 코와라 니중기비 니중 삼로다 잠니지 삼로티디 야네 삼로 디바야 슈처셔 로제디네 아저기 님 탈비고 본토도야 람 스킬레게 에네 냠스렘 바르티니 탈비고 본토야 난 담제키면서 요거 띵이 되어토야디 데소이네 셈레티니 뭐레스 펜 띵이 탈바샤다 산요고 바샤다 지게 초람나 곰람 파바 파베 남샤디 람디 아주 셈디 기회 삼로데 야네 야 당지 장도시 냠는 지어도 뭐 공부도 시대 남용고 이게 남들한테네 나 저기 파비고 바토야다 탈비고 바토야 담지 기비고 바토야 네 타마라 교교절에 제가 치마 원료고 바토야디 용거할 땐 델라틴데 디기 투야디 디기 용거를 이거 시삼 삼로전의 용거를 제가야 개와야 저 탈바 담지 기비 땡이 대화되게 낭sem라 되는 거래스
From these verses, what should be very clear is it's through our non-virtuous minds that we accumulate non-virtuous karma, or to express it differently, it's through our mind being afflicted by anger, attachment, ignorance, pride, and so forth, that non-virtuous karma is accumulated. Every problem, suffering, or difficulty we have ever encountered or ever will comes about in this way. So recognizing this, at the very least, we should commit to refrain from non-virtue, in particular, not just non-virtuous behavior of our body and speech, but try to refrain our mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions. And to do this, we should combine our determination not to engage in non-virtue with a determination to engage in virtue.
Sorry.
And here in particular, this refers to developing our habituation to virtuous ways of thinking which are contrary to afflicted ways of thinking. So instead of having harsh thoughts towards others or critical thoughts towards ourselves or others, rather develop wholesome virtuous minds. Value others, cherish them, care for them, no matter who they are or what circumstances they're in. Develop an appreciation for them, a genuine respect for them, whomever they are. So cultivating virtuous minds such as these and many others lead to the development of mental paths, and those paths, as they are developed, lead to the attainment of enlightenment. So what we should be very clear of here is the focus is on our mind. Our mind, if afflicted, is creating the causes for suffering. Our mind, if virtuous, is creating the causes for happiness. And if we develop our virtuous mind into paths that are leading to enlightenment, we will attain lasting, stable happiness through transforming our mind. So therefore, both suffering as well as happiness comes about in dependence on the mind. So to develop the very first of the 5 mental paths, the path of accumulation, refers to or requires the accumulation of a variety of different causes, developing the mind in a particular way. Developing the mind further, we develop the second mental path, the path of preparation. Developing the mind further still, we develop the third path, the path of seeing, and developing the mind further into the fourth path, the path of meditation. So this whole process is about developing our mind further. In brief, strengthening our habituation to virtuous, wholesome ways of thinking, and breaking our habituation to the afflictions. And finally, we develop our mind, our mental paths, into the path of no more training, the attainment of enlightenment. So therefore, we should be very clear that this focus, whilst on abandoning non-virtue, it also includes cultivating virtuous minds. All lasting happiness comes about through transforming our mind. All that is being presented here is to make it abundantly clear and thereby encourage us of the need to guard our mind. And what does this term guarding or protecting the mind relate to? It relates to guarding the mind or protecting the mind from the influence of the afflictions. And how do we do so? We bind our mind to virtuous ways of thinking. Because if the mind is virtuous, it is not going to be non-virtuous, it's not going to be afflicted. And the method for doing so is conscientiousness, which we heard about a lot in the previous chapter, and mindfulness and vigilance, the focus of this chapter. So vigilance, which is a mind of insight or wisdom, is the mind that is aware of our mind in general. So it's a particular consciousness aware of our mind in general. And it's watching. It's watching in the background. And it notices that, my mind is virtuous. This should lead to rejoicing. Or it notices my mind is afflicted. And immediately, we should rely on mindfulness, this mindfulness or recollection, to recall the faults of the afflictions, to recall the virtuous mind we are wanting rather to cultivate, and to recall the benefits of that virtuous mind. So in this way, mindfulness and vigilance, they work together, they're companions. They are the friend of the meditator. They are the ones that ensure that we can weaken our habituation to non-virtue, and strengthen our habituation to virtuous, wholesome ways of thinking. Then myself the dread and less the gossip. In a day not so they may also section by that. And section numbers in copy idea.
That's so rangi that lay you wangi social yadinike kanga chicken that noy chick to go or Asian.
Honky Svada Yuna, Honky Neve, says.
Isn't it a social rangi live what are you?
So in this 7th verse, rhetorical questions were posed around the hells. And from the presentation on the hells, we know that there is the hell being who is experiencing this intense and what is experienced as everlasting suffering, everlasting in the sense of the lifespans, they are so long. And in this process of being tormented in one of the varying hells, the hot hells or the cold hells or the neighboring hells or the occasional hells, the being in hell is often tormented by others. So who are these others? The others perhaps holding them down, cutting them up, burning them. Who are these other beings causing pain to the hell being themselves? So if often the term hell guardians or hell denizens is used. So these are the ones inflicting the pain and suffering on the hell being themselves. So who are these hell denizens or hell guardians? Because if they are hell beings as well, suffering sentient beings sent to hell by their own karma, but inflicting pain on others, they should be suffering too. They are also in this blazing hot or freezing cold environment. So the being doing the beating surely should be suffering as well. But this isn't presented in the text at all. It's not presented they are suffering, so they can't be sentient beings. But then if they're beyond suffering, who are they? Buddhas? Are Buddhas then beating and tormenting sentient beings? Of course not. That makes no sense. So then who are these hell guardians or hell denizens? Well, they're not other sentient beings. They're not Buddhas. They rather are appearances or apparitions that have arisen from our own karma, or from the karma of the being in hell. So to that being in hell, these beings look completely real. They look like beings of a separate continuum who are tormenting them, who are holding them down while their body is being cut and cleaved, who are burning them intentionally. So they appear as other beings. but they are just apparitions from the karma of that hell being, nothing other than a ripening effect of the karma created by that being. And so too with the hellish environments that the being finds themselves in. This too is a product of the ripening effect of their own karma, the karma that are to be born in hell, that was abiding on a continuum and has ripened into this hellish experience.
And the Divasavana didn't to Yongoration, and the Kawasavana Jivara Sosugi, Penekawaya was sat, and the Monam that didn't see Sosugi, Jimobana, Sosugi, Pene, Shea Hati, Chike, Dewachan, Japan, Dewachi, Shea can come by Nijota, Jimeto, Sadige, Chick, Suso, Monshara, Dian, Sosugi, Dian, now the Maleva, Jimishandaji, now the Chidu Shaki, Chagomadi, the Penazi Mahobana, Chinga Kawasa, security, Dewachan, Javana. 대화진이 되세게 내다坑바다 배도 차다 인조 쇼지 농주야 야고쇼 요아디게 미전다지 가는 시도 쉐바레스는 디야 차고 말이 디야 가르스는 어느 중 사람사 쇠남게 쇠남디 내 개화사 기회 바자 되는기 대모야야기 개화사 기회 바자사 개화디는 바자 심이 되는샤 이 마음반에 야 아니 가서 루이티 도와진 대화진 야 개화리도 심이 편이 개화 햄바 다자 바자기 제부디 민체 다랑 조용거보다
So Bodhisattva
답신 소다 레유스는 다신 레유를 다시요 니가 뭐라다 레유를 담아라요와 레유가 레유요로다 다신스를 가기는 매해는 기시오 제제다 빠지 다신 베지단에 와로다네.
So if this is the case with non-virtue, with a non-virtuous imprints ripening into these hellish experiences, what about virtuous imprints that ripen into pure lands? Are there laborers creating this pure land into which that you arise? Not at all. In the same way, powerful virtuous imprints ripen into the experience of the pure lands.
And there's a doshine, some down doshi, Tikumcheda, just Sanjeta, and the Pendulum Yusumbigi, Lomba law, Tene Anjugi, Chigiva, Yumche, some those who some done odeti, and they said as a bureau chat you would matajan, as a Lamza of the Kalitanegi, Cadena, some bureau chat, how would I do?
The reason why Shantideva here, as well as authors in other texts, present something, and then they make sure to include both quotations as well as logical reasons to validate what is being said, is when something is being presented that is beyond our experience in particular when it's something that's beyond our experience or something that is difficult for us to achieve. We need a lot of encouragement, so a lot of assistance, so that we can gain certainty that what is being presented is the actual case. It really is like this, because it's only through gaining deep certainty that one will change one's behavior.
Dang Trada, young Shena, so such it in the Yudican. And Delia, Gabriel Kashikan, never check among water in them Naya, the Niki, Mia Yorvada. The Niki Nilam need be Gabriel, Azulia, same day she was Yorvadan. Chikshi Trada, young that in Basam, Sibeshena, and Mission Jimbiroji, Tonja Digi, Sosulia, Ganga Tag, in Leo de Bay, Shena Rose, Shena, shoe Yeti, Takanga shoe Yeti. 제가 니lâm 나래 미거와. 단이 Nilam say or the other Yorubes and Yomarwa, in a Nilam Nala de Yomorwa, and Gabriel Yajic Nilam Nalia, Socio when you watch it to just such a you metal to Mariosa Nimaya, Shah to set you all days in Socio. Provoke when you bet you one and social motion, but which you told and Geshe Thubten Rabten Gabriel Sosugi, lama which is J, and I make you choose on the next year, the Niki Nilam non Migor water. The Niyungor what? Says that the Niki Nilam no yo, the Nili say under the Yomar water. In a Nilam in the house of Yodi water. Nilam also your water. He said you try Yomar just Shaza. Your water. 你写的面是吧？同给他也没对吧？你写的是找他也看不，你就他也没对吧？本来你那明天还是白没得结果当然，你那明天还是搞着没得当就没得当着这个，可能必须大家搞开始朝电话的这个是吧？这个是吧？你写要的那些天天吵说什么的，我那要嘛同样没对吧？就是你那么弄了天天给约吧的约别个了，你也会从那这个生理啊、肌肤当的几个啊其他。 대상을용요받아 진짜 누구 강아지 진짜 녀석 주나 셈이야 강한다 누구 용요받이 먼저 하고 두고도 돼.
Coming back at this some
셈이야 강한 용요받이 하고 두고 이람을 qabla 미 강한 제가 다 셈사지 마요 자로다 디니 토나
uploading it
말 이람네 선이래 민서 이람네서 강한 용고로 봐. 이강한 요받이 나한테는 이람 토서 강한 시불 셔서 그 쟁유도아 지난 일람이 나서 강아 용거로 와 강아 체거로或者 강아的용거로 동아的용거로 일람 미미데라
we all have experience of dreaming. Sometimes our dreams are deeply unpleasant than nightmares. We're in a place where we may feel in grave danger. We could be experiencing many hardships. There's a lot of fear and apprehension within. Maybe someone approaches us, and in our nightmare, fear arises. Is this person going to harm me? Can I run and hide from them? Can I get away? But as soon as the nightmare ends, we recognize it was just a nightmare, and the terror dissipates. This is also the case with lovely dreams. We may be surrounded by dear friends and loved ones, and in a beautiful environment, having quite a wonderful time. But when we wake up, it's over, it's finished. We recognize that was just a dream, pleasant dream, but just a dream. And if let's say there's a particular car we've long desired, and we desire it so much, we even dream about it, and in our dream we're driving this lovely car. When we wake up, we may have enjoyed the dream, but unfortunately, the car is not going to be parked in our garage. So after we recall that something was a dream, it doesn't have so much impact on us. We can recollect all these things that happened, whether good or awful. But the impact that it now has on us when we're recalling it is quite different. We do not take it as being so real.
세상 먼저 일람 미미시베 일람 통시베 일람 미베 qabla 안데니게 자다 양당 소소니베기 해 셈젠로식 소소리 미기어 일람난 통거로와 통화나 일람이 내가서 되서 여러 말에서는 일람이 내가서 코로나 것을 여대려서 일람베 가사텔라 일람이 내가텔라 코로나 것을 되서 여대려서 제가 여대려 제가 돼서 인도수여 말해서 제가 되는 게 일람이 내가서 양치 소소히 사지 인지보다 매도든가 되니게 인지보 통한데 되니게 직 가라나 기비가 일람이 내가서 되는 매도든가도 여러베스 그런 밀람 인내가 밀람 통 밀람기 미들라 그 매도든가 돼서 코로나 것을 여대려서 그래.
But during the dream, if one is having a terrible nightmare, one is being chased by tigers, lions, elephants, bears, and snakes, so one really is in quite a frightful predicament. During that dream, to the dreamer, do these tigers exist? The snakes exist? Of course. Just look at the reaction that one is experiencing. Likewise, if it's a very pleasant dream, one's perhaps long deceased family may be surrounding you as well as loved friends and in a beautiful environment. To you as the dreamer, they all exist.
is that Denigi Bento to brother Nilam is Toya, Nilam Metusum Shanda, Sehan Gayomarwa, Sushi Nilam Yasukole, Nilam Miche to instance Sehan Gayomarwa, Koronkoranchik, Simgiti, Pasha Tona Chishari, Nilamina. So, on dinner, she then yawa said that in the Chipa Charo, Simgitendo, Miki Pasha Shari, Digi, Pasha, the same Nichi Yom Torwa. In I sing answer, Dewachin, Deneki, Jingam to get in a Sosuke Gawasa, Giviki, Pasha Simit in the Shari, in the Tewacha Shingam, the Pasha Sensi to you. But then you let me to talk that Chiparo Shadu.
Then, if you were to ask yourself questions similar to the 7th verse, who created your experiences or what you experience in the dream? These hideous experiences or these very pleasant experiences? There were no beings there manufacturing an environment that you later entered into in your dream. It was merely the ripening of your karmic imprints. So too with the experience in the hell realms, as well as those in Pure Land such as Tushita. These arise from either powerful non-virtue or powerful virtue.
Then to was semi tendo diniki kawa to the Kiri Bacha, Nubaruch Bacha, Tubusha, Shukcha, Benazui, Benajasemba, Tolam Betty, Ya Tolam Torre, Dinner Sanje, Gumwe, She, Seba, Sanje, and the Ma Gundra, Gundan Ma Sung Jumba, Denima Che, She, Sosuko had Yungur Bada. She said, Sosuku, Sunam Sabi, Topi, and the Sunami, the whole means in the nature, Sosuki. Jai to war and it's a soon go to war. Go to war. Just like Kiwi, Pacha, Kiwasha, Kigi, New Ballet in the Yumor. In it, so Jizada, so you do not think you never saw any member share the same Yomo with short get, God, Kiwaja Yasam Dangores. Jezan Tarbada, Tarbish, Tamjiki, Gopasa, Toyota, same Kiwet, Ganya, Trupchin, eating the draw on Mother, some not on a mother, Chiama, the Lugutone, in Basic as Shavin at December. Yawaleki to Yamere, Chizada, Lugi Juba Sangandradi, Kuno Sim Sangmi Tone, no Lugi Juba Sangandi, Lugi Kawasina, Skulon Kiwi, some Nachukuni Lob, and Lugi Chichava de Kawa de Adam.
When I got sick, the could give us the Katul bumper, they could have the cases like this. And
Chiza is that. She's on the Kiwis is some little on the two causes. She's a Dunga Dingy Meba Suya, the Gama, Zawaki Meba Suya, Sim Gitin, and the same Yumo, which was a down park, yeah, the guard. They give out some time. They need to not have a Tajiki to get so same in the body edge. She's on the Nezada, same Yukuno, the somebody Yabumata Vena, Tini, Yunga, whichever can see when I did them, Gawa in a touching budget, catch him to a mere. She's at that same D, Shell, Nubi, somebody, see somebody, Mebaje, you tonation, and never in there, Yawaki, get Nucleasa to a Mebade. She's at Dineza, so similar, which is a Dineza, the same D, so get down for it. She's the same, she's in the same, and that as the same song for it, she's that Yomo Bicho, Miki, sim, get sim park, soon, in the same day, sim give song, she do same day. Migi sim Gima Jubaje, each of the Droma Jubaje, and simply give each other Gawaji has some Dangores. That's an actually Gawaji has some Dangores or that another road is.
Further illustration is a karmic result of powerful virtue accumulated is on the Bodhisattva Mahayana path of accumulation, is that the Bodhisattva can interact with statues of the Buddha in a way that is beyond us as ordinary beings, in that a Bodhisattva from a statue can receive teachings, can receive teachings from a statue. So to be able to gain such a very different experience comes about independence on their powerful, virtuous karma created. So therefore, from this presentation, one should take great encouragement that to the extent that we can turn our mind towards virtue, away from non-virtue, in other words, so that our very being is one of virtue, that our mind becomes habituated to virtue, and therefore the afflictions become quite alien to us. We will be accumulating great virtue, and this will aid our progress towards this attainment of liberation. And if we think of such a person whose mind is deeply virtuous, for whom the afflictions don't easily arise, or if they do, they don't have much strength or staying power, such a person will be a loving person, a tender person, will care for others, whomever they meet, whomever they think of. They will have naturally warm thoughts towards them. So how could it be possible? How could it be likely, rather? How could it be likely for such a person to be reborn in hell, to be reborn in any of the lower realms? The mind is so habituated to virtue that, and therefore the virtuous imprints on their mind are so strong that one can truly say this person is becoming quite skilled in protecting themselves from suffering. In other words, they're protecting themselves from their afflictions. How do you know this? Because their mind is bound to virtue, tied to virtue. Their mind is, and this is experienced by the mind being habituated to wholesome, virtuous ways of thinking.
Nanglo ya chasang du sen kewa du kore, tipa pong kore esaji, mangbo je dinade de, dinige sem sung kore, jenshi sem sung kore esayada, mangbo sung yora, jezang, dine za lemrim nanglo chasang du yo du, chasang dangbo kane sem samdang ta de kiwi cho, samdang kiwi cho, sem sung se, sem migi yu cho, kima chu je, sem le kewa kanya kie cho kore si kore wada, jezang da di kewa kie chu de, da samdang ta do ne, manjo kare samdang kore si de, jezang, jike lemrim na sung yu de, dangbo ni ya, and then also do my let how do simbi, Kuri do my let how does simbi, dele, Cuba, Nuba, Conjusum Yore, Sebi, Ishijada, a conjusum Cuba recipe came the conjusum Jamra chair, in a conjusum de Cho Priala Soba, the conjusum ye, and the Chigge, Indian Chichi, Chevo Priada, and Chigge, Chasevala Soba chair, Divasha Lasum, Diadisungorwa, and Dinashi, that in the Yari time the dinner. Jamdru labja labsidita, Jamdru Japsudive, Jamdru labjas Carson, Diva Majek or Duxiadi, Cizan Diva Majes on the duck, Diva Majes Yadi, and Kawan the Gorsene, as you know, is the nature to be Turum songs yadi. Cizada sent the Turum song or said the DB Chawa Shana news in Nubicha, Jigme, Sebe some dumb Koreas, the Dochota gave a Shanley Pembada, and she Pandoga some of that, he gets it in a to speech, some of the dumb Koreas. Some of those chatas sungorwa, and then they Sena, Yana, Sena, Chimbe, Simbe, Science, Rangi, Sena, Saudi, Chimbe, Sambe, Simbe, Senet, Akima, Chubache, Chimbe, some. In a social logic, Selia, Dangi, speciality, Pember to be some Diana, that was. Chisada Seva comes to the Shelly, University, Sawas, Gama, Jevine, Sosia, Coronage, Coliva, New Lanchi, New Lanchi, Sebi. Then never king me as part new lynching me as if you knew and look me as a big some died, several compiada sobada. In India, chicken share a pembe to Yadam, as a kiwi java, cut it to an appear Yahoo, did the niggy, Kawoche, thinking moody did yam the chickens some dia, that's in yam the Ruada. But those in it, and the nigger some died to Sungorwa. That delay, a GGL this man, something things in the nigger some zizzy things into Shinian too. In a sim Namia short Yomo part the Kiwi, same thing is in Timbo to Yada. In a share of Sadi, in a Yazu Yomo, that's a Yutzawa, Kajili to the Yungore, Tasim Marik Padi, part two with him in the Jebache, in the Jebachina, in it, in bad time about to share up here, the Yana and the Tisuya, Combala Tene, Tavata Tanjiki, Tuguri said, she's not the same. Sunda the Dustin Sungor, that Majili, Samson, that Samson, because Jimba, Sudu, something share up Yamaja, and then Tavachim's church, some diamond, Jam Nije, Jam Nije, Chanju Sem, and then Jaju Sem, D. Daneda, Gunma D. Tone, Jimba Sudu, something share at Yamaja. The Samsona, the Yamlin Chetade, those Yamlin Jedi, Samsona, the Chatterkit.
most of you are very familiar with the presentation in the Lamrim. And the Lamrim presents in a very clear way how to guard the mind. So Shantideva is presenting here, and what you are used to from the Lamrim presentation are in complete harmony. So in the previous chapter and this chapter, Shantideva is talking about the great need for mindfulness and vigilance. And the way this is presented in the Lamrim is that the need to turn one's mind to virtue and away from non-virtue is very clear in the presentation on the lower realms, where one sees with vivid clarity through the presentation on the lower realms, one sees the vivid clarity the suffering that beings are experiencing right now and that potentially awaits us as a ripening result of non-virtue. This then leads one to both want to abandon non-virtue and to embrace virtue. How so? The Lamrim immediately takes one into refuge, where one cultivates a sincere attitude of turning to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha for protecting refuge, to their guidance, to lead one to gain protection in one's mind from the afflictions. So this is the way that the Lamrim presents. Moreover, the Lamrim then goes on in great detail to present what we should be binding our mind to. So what Shantideva is presenting here is a method by which to bind our mind, mindfulness and vigilance. And what to bind our mind to is principally ethical restraint, the determination not to cause harm for yourself and others. At least not to bring harm through our physical behavior. And we should also not bring harm through our speech. And we should make effort. Those two are fairly easy to achieve, but we should make effort in the third to ensure our mind doesn't go in the direction of harm towards others or ourselves. In other words, restrain our mind from coming under the influence of afflictions, because it's the afflictions, any of the afflictions, they create harm to ourselves and expressed harm to others. And in addition to ethical restraint, one engages in the subsequent training of generosity, where ethics is the determination, I won't bring harm. Generosity is the determination, I will bring benefit. I will utilize all that I have, not just material resources, but also my skills, my talents, my time, my energy, to overcome my self-centered attitude of miserliness and to give of myself, and thereby bring benefit to others. And the Lamrim presents the third training, that of patience. And successful training in patience comes about independent on the successful training in ethics and generosity, because patience is defined as a mind that stays undisturbed in the face of adversity. So we know how difficult it is for our mind to stay undisturbed in the face of adversity, whether the adversity is coming from others or through our own way of thinking. But the prior training in ethics, the determination, I won't bring harm, and generosity, the determination, I will bring benefits. When those two are being trained in well, patience arises naturally, because one will value others. One does not want them to be harmed, which is the mind of ethics. So therefore, one won't want to respond to others in an aggressive manner or repay them in kind with harsh words. And secondly, through the training in generosity, one will want others to be happy. This valuing of others, aids the mind of patience. Then the fourth training that the Lamrim leads us to, that of joyous or enthusiastic perseverance. This is a mind that delights in virtue. So in this context, we can understand it as joy arising for the kind of person you see yourself becoming. You recognize that you are a person who does not truly value others, who wants to bring joy and happiness into the life of others, who wants to be a force of good in this world, and through one's endeavors is not bringing much harm, but is bringing good. All of this is a reason to be joyful, to take delight in this virtue. And that then, this fourth mind of joyous perseverance, aids the fifth mind, concentration. This concentration is challenging. A mind that is single-pointedly concentrated is challenging to cultivate. But through joy and the determination that comes with joyous perseverance, it can be cultivated relatively easily. And the sixth training that the Lama guides us towards is that of wisdom. Wisdom realizing reality, understanding how things exist in reality. And this is the crucial component required to lead to the state of omniscient enlightenment. So therefore, the way that the Lama and the Bodhisattva's way of life presents to guard the mind are completely in harmony. It comes down to guarding the mind from the afflictions by binding the mind to ethics, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. And how to do that? To do that, mindfulness and vigilance. So this is how these two presentations work together in harmony.
On do shin that Jan Shi in the same song or same song and Kewa Yama to Diva, same Migi Cho to go, Migi Cho Mado, Saint Lianga Masago, Lianga Masad, Yang Kewa Chimada, and then also that Dumagi, Duanyagi, Beauty Sago Maza, Beauty Dumadi Yong Mares, says that Dumali to send a terrible, Thubten some time or said, Lucia same song or said it, that to some more one, but I in Borush.
The very essence of what we're looking at here, so by means to summarize tonight, the very essence of what we're looking at in this chapter is that we need to guard the mind from the afflictions through mindfulness and vigilance. So a way that I encourage you to engage in this meditation, because it's entirely practical and relevant to everyone, no matter what your circumstance is in the morning, set yourself the determination. Create your motivation for the day. Determine, today I will bring no harm, and wherever I can, I'll bring benefit. When I come across an opportunity where I have the capacity to be of benefit, I will embrace that. I won't let it pass by. In whatever circumstance I'm in, I will not bring harm. And here then, think about your day ahead, because everyone is doing something in the day, whether it's in their home environment or if they go to a place of work. We will have activities, and there are others that we engage in directly or indirectly. Indirectly, whether it's on the phone or just thinking about them. We're engaging with others both directly and indirectly. So think about what you're likely to encounter that day, and develop this determination. I will not cause harm. I will not do anything physically harmful to others, but I'll also not speak in a harsh manner or harmful manner to others or about others. I will keep my physical behavior and my speech from being harmful. And I will also use mindfulness and vigilance, not only to make sure that my physical and verbal behavior is not harmful, but that my mind is not under the influence of the afflictions. So this is the first training, that of ethics. Now, the second training, that of generosity. Wherever I have an opportunity to be of benefit, and I have the capacity to be of benefit, I will embrace that. So here you're thinking about your place of work or your activities at home, or whomever you may be encountering. So it's very real to your own particular circumstance. This is what I'm going to encounter today. How can I be of benefit? And think of ways that you can utilize your capacity, your skills, whether it's your time, your friendship, your knowledge, to be of benefit to others. And thirdly, whilst I'm trying not to do harm and to be of benefit, I am likely to experience hardships. This is normal. It's nothing surprising. And I won't let it overwhelm me. Rather, when I encounter hardships, I'll remind myself, this is to be expected. It's not a big deal. It's not personal to me. It's not a big deal. And if it's hardships in relation to others or a task, forbear with that. Deal with that. It's not a big deal. What is important is that I bring no harm and that I be of benefit. So if I'm achieving that, I can forbear with the hardship I receive from others, because it's likely to be nothing worse than some expression of someone else's unhappy mind, or some ingratitude that we are habituated to taking personally. Let go of all of that. And fourthly, take joy in what you're doing. Take joy in your endeavors to be virtuous, to refrain from any harsh way of speaking or acting. Take joy in the help that you give to others. Take joy to where you have been patient. For example, if you've been generous, be joyful in that, and be joyful also in your success in overcoming the affliction of miserliness. So in this way, intentionally generate joy in your endeavors, so as to serve as encouragement to continue and to recognize the good that you are doing. And in this way, you recognize that I am turning away from the afflictions. I am developing into the person that I've long longed to be. I am finding my way to virtue, and thereby my afflictions are starting to be weaker. Recognize this and take joy in that, because that is the path. Bind our mind to virtue through mindfulness and vigilance. And through mindfulness and vigilance, refrain from the afflictions. So this then, in brief, is the meaning of what we are looking at here. Guard the mind from suffering now through guarding the mind from the afflictions. And through guarding the mind from the afflictions, we guard ourselves from suffering in the future, because we are preventing the accumulation of non-virtue. That is the very essence of what is being presented here.
Lama Sanji, Chilavi, Sanji, Kitin Chimba Sanji, Kitty, Sempi, Dush Jamba, Sanji, Just Temba, Sanji, Kitin Jamba, Just Temba Chagor, Patum Sagore, and the Tamadana the Chelia, the Molam Jade, Chesadini, Keva, Cheva, Della, Dene, Semja Tamje, take it to Tempa to do on the tower show Sada. More by the Semja Tamjing, Loma Changi, Solian, Tabachimbuchu, Chasa, Denge, and Yamlan Jeju. And then Sanjay Saria go to be good to show us. That in Nigga Molam de Mezzacate, Jachimuji to ne, so and Gang Ja, Jack Jachimuji, what else I soon do, to do in the Molam Jai to get him a
And finally, come to dedicate your virtue, make prayers of aspiration. And here I'll share my own particular thought. But what's important with these prayers is they need to be heartfelt, not a mere recitation of words. So therefore, you create your prayers of aspiration, your dedication, in a way that touches you. So I'll just give an illustration that all this spiritual training one is engaging in has come about independent, firstly, on the kindness of the Buddha who has brought the teachings into our world, and the kindness of our spiritual teachers who have kept it alive throughout these millennia, and lifetime to lifetime have influenced us, who have guided us, and have led us to create the causes whose ripening results we are enjoying right now. So therefore, dedicate this virtue so that I continue to encounter the Dharma in lifetime to lifetime, and continue to encounter my spiritual teachers and recognize them as such, and continue to rely on them, to follow their guidance, to take it to heart. And may all suffering beings come under the care of skillful spiritual teachers, guiding them to abandon non-virtue and to cultivate virtue. In this way, may all beings gain a state freed of suffering. May all beings attain a state of lasting happiness.
Yeah.
So that seems like a very suitable point to end for tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you.